My name is Liz Taylor. I'm a Senior Project Manager here at National RTAP. Before we get started, I'm going to go through a few housekeeping slides about how to use GoToWebinar. And I will note that some of the look of GoToWebinar just changed, so they won't match exactly the screenshots we have here, but everything looks like it's still in the same place. So the GoToWebinar control panel is on the right side of your screen. You can open and close your control panel by clicking on the orange arrow in the Grab tab. You can move the control panel anywhere on your screen by clicking and dragging. You can view the presentation in full screen mode by clicking on the blue screen icon in the Grab tab. For audio, select the mic and speakers to use your computer, or select telephone and you'll see the phone number, access code, and your personal PIN, and we recommend this for best audio quality. If you have trouble hearing a speaker, let us know in the questions box and we will try to address it. You can submit questions during the webinar via the questions box. Type your question in the white box and click send. We'll answer questions in the order they are received at the end of the webinar. To ask a question via your phone or your mic and speakers, click the raise hand icon in the Grab tab. We'll unmute you when it's your turn, and then we'll remute you when you're done. You can download the presentation slides via the handout section of the control panel. There are two other handouts available today as well. One is the Minute Van Kids Permission Packet, which Michelle will be talking about in her presentation. And one is Mary Anderson's poster, which was presented as part of an NCMM poster session at the CTAA Expo last year. Also, the slides and a recording of the webinar will be on the webinars page of the National RTAP website within 1 week, and transcripts can be provided upon request. Okay, so welcome again to today's webinar. We're excited to have these three great panelists here with us today to present on the programs and strategies they're using to get kids in their communities to use transit. So Amber Blake is Director of the Department of Transportation and Sustainability at Durango Transit in Durango, Colorado, which is a small city in southwest Colorado. Michelle Brooks is a Senior Associate at Transaction Associates, which runs the public transportation in the town of Acton, Massachusetts, which is a rural town on the outskirts of Boston. And finally, Mary Anderson is a transportation planner at Whatcom County of Governments in Bellingham, Washington, in Northwest Washington, which serves both rural and urban areas in that area. So we're really grateful to have these panelists here with us today to share some best practices and some of their lessons learned. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Amber.
Thank you. My name is Amber Blake, and I'm with Durango Transit in the city of Durango. And we here in Durango, Colorado, focus a lot of our efforts on targeting youth to gain choice riders. And the reason we're targeting youth is because we know that if you start a habit at a young age, you can continue it throughout your life. Some of the other reasons that we are targeting youth is that with the newer generations, there's a lot of them that are feeling that they don't need to own a car, and car ownership is not necessarily a top priority for them, as well as the fact that we live in a valley and we have a number of environmental constraints. So we can't expand our roadway. So we need to make sure that we can use our existing system to the best and most efficient manner. So next slide, please. So as you see here, it's our future lifetime riders. And when we say we target youth, we actually start at the preschool age. And this photo here is of a preschool class. And we bring a bus up to the preschool and show the students the system. The students will then use from preschool through grades 12. Our school district has a partnership with us where if it's feasible, they will actually use our fixed route system for their field trips. And we have seen through the years that targeting students at a very young age will actually help get their families on the bus. So for those choice riders, we found that this is a very effective and efficient way to get these kids on the bus. Next slide, please. So we also know that our brand is key to ensuring that we can target our youth riders. So we went through a branding exercise in about 2008 and have these great red buses and trolleys throughout town. And we find it's really interesting when you've got first graders, which is the Thank You Anthony, who have done a transportation day and they know the red trolleys and they know the red buses. So our brand helps us with our image, and having an image of safe and clean buses, a great mode of transportation for kids once they start to gain their independence. If families understand how to ride the bus with the young kids, and the schools are promoting the use of public transit to access after-school activities, in-school activities, as well as jobs for the high school age students after school, we found that it's a good partnership between the schools, both primary and secondary, and the community. Next slide, please. So we also have, I mentioned the partnership with the Durango School District 9R, but we also have a partnership with the four-year college that's in town, Fort Lewis College. And some of the collaboration that we have with the college is both a past contract with their students, where each of the students obtain an annual transit pass with their tuition. And then we also have programs with the high schools. Next slide. Where we've worked with the school district to provide free annual transit passes to any student in the district that has a free and reduced lunch qualification. So all of the low-income students within the city of Durango can obtain a free transit pass. On top of this, we have a low-income transit pass that is offered to their families that they can obtain here at the transit center. And we didn't want to kind of single out the low-income portion. We wanted to make sure that we were being fair, and since our target is youth, we have a $30 annual pass for any student that's registered for school. So these passes can be obtained at the transit center, where the passes for the free and reduced lunch students are actually distributed at the schools due to FERPA rules. We also, along with this, made an agreement that there would be a targeted educational component in the elementary schools. And we do this both through our Safe Routes to School program, as well as working with curriculum and for our International Baccalaureate schools, the IB coordinators. So the photo that you see here with the little boy holding the I Love Riding the Bus sign was our ribbon cutting project for Safe Routes to School infrastructure sidewalk project that we had implemented this past year. And what has been really great about this is that we see these students actually riding the service, and the teachers are incorporating the use of public transit as well as how to read transit maps and the benefits to both our community and our environment of the transit system. And this goes so far as to, even today, we hosted a field trip for the third graders at Needham Elementary, and they actually rode the transit system to the transit center, took a tour of the transit center to find out more about the operations. Then they went up to City Council chamber, where we had a mock City Council meeting, and one of the things that the students decided was an important topic for the City Council to make a decision on was transit funding. And the decision that the third graders made today was that City Council should pass a sales tax dedicated to funding transit. So that's how all of these pieces are coming together to help ensure the vibrancy and use of our system through youth. Next slide, please. And then finally, one of the unique things that we have going on is we have the trolley line, which is the route that services the majority of the schools, and the service is on 20-minute headways. And we have partnered with the art teachers in the district to do what we're calling art in transition. And you can see the shadow box that we have mounted in the transit shelter there. And the art teachers select student artwork, and then the students write a little piece about the art. And we rotate through different art pieces every month to highlight, the students' artwork or what they're studying in school. And we found that this is a really nice interactive process, particularly for the middle school and high school age students. It's also started a nice community dialogue. Our Public Arts Commission is very interested in this and helping ingrain public art and art in the community in more unique places. So that's what I have to say about youth and transit in Durango for Durango Transit, and I'm going to turn it over to the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Amber, and we will definitely have a time for questions in case anyone wants to hear more about logistically how you've done any of these things or any follow-up questions, or we'd also love to hear from the audience if you've done anything similar. So hold on to those questions and thoughts, and we'll address that at the end. So now we'll have Michelle Brooks talk about her program with the Minute Van in Acton, Massachusetts. Michelle?
Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Acton Minivan Dial-A-Ride service. And it's a pretty unique service, and I've been working with the town of Acton on all their transportation programs for about 5 years. And so the town really wanted to tackle transportation issues, and they really wanted to put together some unique programs. So I'll tell you a little bit about what they did to make this program unique in terms of how they targeted working with kids. So next slide. So the town of Acton's Minute Van Dial-A-Ride service is a demand response service, but it's open to everyone in town. So they didn't want to limit it, as some of the demand response services are, to a particular group. They really wanted to open it up. Acton, you can see the picture there, pretty quiet little town, and they did not have any local public transportation prior to this program. So they had some commuter rail service in and out of the city, but really nothing local for people to use to get around for everyone to use. And also in terms of the kids and after-school programs, there's no late bus in town. So if kids wanted to stay late for programs, they really couldn't stay unless they could get a ride or if they wanted to do anything else in town. One of the key target audiences for this program, if you want to go to the next slide. So really kids in the 12 to 16 age range are who we targeted, and we really gave this a lot of thought as to who might use the service. And our thought was that kids on the older side maybe wouldn't be so interested, but kids between 12 and 16, our goal was to give them some independence at an age when they could handle some independence, but we felt that it was really important to put some controls in place to make everyone, especially since it was a new program, especially the parents, feel comfortable with them using the service. And one of the reasons that this came up, and we felt this way, was because it was a dial-a-ride service. So a fixed route service, anyone would be able to see the route and know where it was going. But because this was a dial-a-ride, there was a lot more flexibility involved, and so we really felt that it was important to put some of these safety precautions in place. So the next slide, and I'll tell you a little bit about sort of what we did. And as Liz mentioned, with this permission packet that I'm going to talk a little bit about, I think is available to you through the webinar, and it is also available on the website, which I'll give you. So in order for kids to be able to use this service, their parents have to register them. That's sort of the start of the process. Once they're registered, they get this little student pass that you see here, and that's what they show when they take a ride on the service. In addition to that, as part of this packet, there's a safety packet, and we ask the parents and the kids to go through the safety packet together and for them both to sign off on it. And it gives them a lot of information about the service. It gives them an overview, and then, as I said, we ask them to sign it and return it to us to make sure that they understand. And some of the things that are in there are, especially for kids on the younger side, we do ask them to sit towards the front of the bus. We also remind them, and this was something really important that came up, because they weren't familiar with public transportation, we felt that we needed to put in there reminders about how this is not the same as a school bus. We were afraid that maybe kids would think that traffic was going to stop when this bus let them off. So we wanted to make sure that we had some safety information in there as well. And then the way that they book their trips is by calling a dispatch line. There is an online reservation system, but if they use that, the trips are always confirmed with the parents as well, either by an email or by a phone call. And that way we all feel confident that parents know what the kids are using the program for and where they're going. So next slide. Promotion. The schools were a great partner in promoting this, and this is a regional school system, small town. So the school was a great partner in getting the word out about the program. They helped us do backpack stuffers. They put information into the school newsletter, and in addition to all that, we used all of the free local advertising we could get. The cable station did a feature on the program when it first started. It was covered in local papers. And then in addition to that, we had the bus come to town meetings. So we had a table with information about the service, and we had the bus at town meetings so people could get used to what it looked like, and they could get some information on it. The shuttle itself was probably some of the best advertising we could do. So once we sort of got it started and it was driving around town, people, and especially the kids, started seeing it at the School of Math that's there, at the skating rink, the gymnastics school, the swim program, and that led to a lot more inquiries. And of course all the contact information and everything is clearly branded on the bus. And then the thing that we really felt was some of the most helpful advertising was other kids. So early adopters of the program were probably the best way that we had to get the word out. Once a few kids started to use it, and other kids realized, this child's able to get to an after-school program, is able to go to work or go out with friends or get to a swim program, then interest in the service really started to build. So next slide. So what does success look like for this service? Previously, as I mentioned, I think the groups of people moving around town, maybe seniors or commuters, were really siloed into their own services. So one of the things that's been a great success has been to see the mix of all different people using this shuttle bus, including the kids. And that was, a lot of what we talked about at first was how would we define success, and it was if we could sort of spread this service among a lot of different groups. The town used this data from the project in order to try to build a more comprehensive project. So with this dial-a-ride service, they've then looked at the popular destinations and put a fixed route service in place. And that service goes to the middle school, high school, which is one of the most popular stops. So they really use the data that we collected to improve services in town even more. We have about 100 students registered to use the service, and we do on average about 70 or more student trips per month. And if you go to the last page there, that's the new CAT service that they put in, across Acton Transit, that goes around town, and ridership on that service has been building since it started, so that's been a great success. Next slide. There's my contact information. I wanted to say also that the service, information about the service and a lot of the materials that I mentioned are on the website for the program, which is minutevan.net. And that's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. I think that was on one of the other slides you had. So if people have the PowerPoint, if you download the PDF, you can click the link that way. So let's take a quick break and do a little poll just to see who in the audience has, wait, don't want to do that, who in the audience has an initiative like this to get kids to use transit in your community. So let me launch this poll and so everyone submit your response, and then in a little bit I'll close it and show you the results. And just give it another 10 seconds or so. All right, good enough. So I'll close that and share. Okay, so hopefully you guys can all see that. I don't see it. As I said, we're getting used to the new this new GoToWebinar, but we had 56% of you do have a some sort of initiative to get kids to use transit in your community, 37% no, and 7% not sure. So like I said, we'd love to hear if you have a different type of strategy that you use in your community with your transit system. We'd love to hear that during the question and answer period. So now we're going to have Mary Anderson from Whatcom County or Council of Governments in Bellingham, Washington, present on her story maps and 7th grade bus program. So Mary, take it away.
All right, thank you, Liz. So my name is Mary Anderson. Oh, let's see, I don't see the slides yet. Are those coming up?
Thank you. I have to apparently show my screen again. So
okay.
There we go. Thanks so much.
Thank you. No problem. So I work for the Whatcom Council of Governments, and we're a metropolitan planning organization in Washington State. We're located about 90 miles north of Seattle, and our county is on the Canadian border. So just to give you an idea of where we are at. And I like how Amber mentioned targeting youth to create a habit at a young age. The summer before 5th grade, I won a bus pass at the county fair and started riding the bus to my before-school band lesson that year and haven't stopped since. In fact, I rode the bus to work today. So there we go. So we are not a transit agency. However, we do partner with ours, the Whatcom Transportation Authority, known locally as WTA, on many projects. One of our projects is Whatcom Smart Trips, and that's a program to encourage people to walk, bike, carpool, or take the bus instead of driving alone. And there's many components to the program, and education is one of them. Next slide. So this program the program developed as an idea to teach 7th graders how to confidently ride the bus. And this isn't something that we just think is a good idea for other people's kids. We allow and encourage our own kids to ride the bus and bike around town. We did receive a grant from the Washington State Department of Transportation to fund the program. And by 7th grade, many students are mature enough to make independent trips. It not only helps out their family, but it also gives the students confidence, and it teaches them a lifelong skill. We partner with the local middle schools to go into the classroom and teach the students how to ride the bus. We have a permission slip that the students take home for their parents to sign, and once signed, the students are eligible for a free quarterly bus pass. Next slide, please. So this is an image of the brochure that we made for this year. As you can see, we have a space for the kids to write down their nearest bus stop, the bus route, and the schedule. Next slide, please. And this is the inside of the brochure. It has some fun destinations across the county that kids will want to go to. We tried to give them as much information as they would need to make the trip without making it too overwhelming. And as a side note, all of the kids that you see pictured are actual 7th graders from a local school. Next slide. We have under an hour total with each class. We go into the classroom and teach the kids how to plan a trip, and then we go outside to a WTA bus. Each of the students gets a pass to practice swiping, and then they sit down and listen to a talk from the driver. The bus driver teaches the students how to board the bus, how to pay, how to tell the driver when you want to get off, and he teaches them about proper bus etiquette, like moving seats if someone in a wheelchair boards. And one of the main points that he tries to stress is that the driver is there to help them. Next slide, please. All of the students practice either loading or unloading a bike on the rack. For most of them, it's the first time they've done this. I do a lot of outreach out in the community, and I've met many adults who have never done this and are very intimidated to put their bike on the rack. So it's great to be able to teach the kids how to do this in a relatively stress-free environment. Next slide, please. One of my favorite bus stories that I always share with the students is a time that I was riding a packed bus home and an elderly lady boarded. There were no empty seats, and although there were many adults sitting down, it was a middle school age boy who stood up and offered her his seat. It was so sweet and such a great example of a positive intergenerational experience that often happens on transit. One of the reasons I share this with the students is to teach them what to do in a similar situation, but also to let them know that their actions can debunk the myth that all teens are rude and have no manners. Next slide, please. So we knew from working with teens previously that transit guides are confusing, especially for first-time riders, and that most transit websites have an overwhelming amount of information. We only had 30 minutes in the classroom, so we needed to find a way to quickly show students how to plan a trip. We decided to create a story map so that the students could have one website to go to with a bunch of trips already planned for them. This is a screenshot of the story map. As you can see, there's a number of tabs across the top that represent different destinations, all accessible by bus. We have things like the movie theater, the mall, the ice cream shop, the local swimming pool, the Fairhaven district where there's a bookstore and a pizza restaurant, and we also have a tab for all of the middle schools. So the map that you see here is the same map that you saw in the brochure a few slides earlier. And I created a subway-style map that only shows a select few of WTA's routes with some fun destinations. We really wanted to simplify things for the kids and show them that the bus can take them to many fun places across town. Next slide, please. So when I click on one of the tabs, like the Barclay Cinemas, I see a map of the location with the bus routes and the bus stops, and I also have a fun picture. Both of the bus routes and the bus stops are interactive. The yellow star that you see is the movie theater, and the other two stars are a video game store and a pizza restaurant. Next slide. When I click on the black dot, which is a bus stop, a pop-up box appears with the stop code, the stop name, and more info, which is a live link to the stop-specific timetable. Next slide, please. So this is the website for WTA with that information for that particular bus stop. Next slide. If you click on the colored route next to the theater, you do get another pop-up box, and that's the bus route information. So you see that this is bus route 331, and again, if we were to click on the more info, that would take us to WTA's website with the time information for that route. Next slide. So now that I showed you the story map, I'm going to give you some tips on how to create one of your own. And the next part is a bit tech heavy, so bear with me and feel free to contact me after the webinar is over with any questions. So the basis of most story maps is, you guessed it, a map. So you or your GIS staff will need to either create a base map in ArcMap or use one that is publicly available. I created this map with the transit lines, the bus stops, and the destinations. Once the map layers are created, they need to be exported to ArcGIS online. The story maps themselves require very little knowledge of GIS to create. Just about anyone can make one. Next slide, please. So this is called an attribute table. It started as an Excel spreadsheet before I imported it into ArcMap. When you're building this, you really want to make sure to include all the information that you want to show in the pop-up box. So, for example, for the destinations, we had the business name, the address, the telephone number, and the bus routes that serve the businesses. This table is for the bus stops, and it shows the stop code, the stop name, and the link to the website. Next slide, please. So again, on the top you see the attribute table in ArcMap, and then on the bottom you see the live example of that pop-up box in the story map. So you see the school name, Colshan Middle School. You can see the address, the city, the website for the school, and then the bus route information. Next slide, please. So to start making a story map, you do need an ESRI account. And they actually have a specific website to host all of your story maps in one place, which is great. And once I log into that website, I see all the story maps I've created, or I can make a new story map by clicking on Create Story. I don't have time to walk you through the entire process, but luckily there are numerous tutorials online. So if you forget any of this information, again, you can contact me or just type, "How do I make a story map?" into Google, and you'll find a lot of useful resources. Next slide. So this is an image of the story map in edit mode. All of the pencil icons that you see are editable. So you can add text, image, and even videos to the sidebar. As you can see for this one, I have a map as a background, but I could also add a static image, a website, or a video. And next slide. Okay, so I'm going to move on to discuss the results of last year's program. In 6 days, we taught 1,291 7th graders how to ride the bus. And of those, 489 claimed a bus pass. And of those who claimed a bus pass, 212 used it at least one time. And the highest number of boardings was 184. And the majority, about 72%, used their pass 9 times or fewer. Next slide. So some of the lessons learned is that not only do you need the school to say yes to presenting in the classroom, but you really need buy-in from the principal, the secretary, and the teacher. They are all integral to the success of the program. And if you are going to bring a bus and a driver, be sure that the driver is friendly and engaging. We lucked out because our bus driver did environmental education for kids for 20 years before driving a bus. For many students, this driver is going to be their first impression of a public bus driver. Make sure it's a good one. And also, visit the school beforehand and talk with school staff so that the driver knows where to park. The school bus loop oftentimes works, but sometimes there's issues like midday buses or food deliveries. And even though most students do have smartphones, many have limited data plans and aren't able to access the story map from their cell phone, which means that we need to figure out a way to get the live link in front of them while they're at a computer. And I mentioned this before, but to the extent that you can, use local students for your photographs. There will likely be somebody either on staff or in the classroom who recognizes the person, and it adds credibility and a personal touch to your program. Next slide. So to try and increase the number of students who claim a bus pass and use the bus pass this year, we're trying a few new things. We're going to be hanging posters in the classrooms, and we are holding a bus board competition. So the school with the highest average number of rides in April will get their school's name on a bus board, just like the one you see pictured. Next slide. And also new this year, we're partnering with 7 local businesses who will offer discounts to the students who ride the bus to their shops. And this is an example of the students, or of the coupons that the kids will get. There's things like discounts on ice cream and pizza, and then a free rock wall climb pass, and a discount at our local bookstore. And of all the businesses that I contacted, only one said no. They're actually all really excited to participate and see the benefit to the community as well as to their business. Next slide, please. So that's it. Thank you very much. I threw this quote in there. This is from one of the students, and you can read it yourself, but basically she just said, "I was nervous, but it worked out. We got to the mall, we got home, and there you go." So thank you again for listening, and I hope that we've inspired you to teach kids to ride the bus.
Thank you so much, Mary. These are all really great strategies, and I hope that you all on the line can use one of them or adapt it for your agency. So I think what we'd like to do now, let me take a look see if we have any questions. But also, so reminder to, let me go to the, if you have any questions, type them into the questions box, or if you want to ask one over your phone or your mic and speakers, raise your hand. We can call on you. And we'd also love to hear if you guys are doing something similar, if you have any lessons learned, or yeah, specific questions about how the speakers implemented any of these things, or details, or results. So we're open for questions now.
Absolutely. So this is Jerry Manuel. I'm the Resource Center Manager for National RTAP. We did have a couple of questions come in during the presentation. Amber, can you confirm, is your service a fixed route? Is there any demand response element for the kids on transit?
Yes, so we run both fixed route and demand response.
Okay, and they're both applicable to the kids on transit, the passes that they receive?
If the child qualifies for the demand response service, then we don't have any at this point that have requested the use of the demand response, but we would work with them to get that figured out.
Okay, and for my own curiosity, I was wondering, what's the minimum age for a child to ride alone on your service?
I don't know. I would guess about 7th grade, so 13, but I don't know if we have a policy on that. I'd have to ask my operations manager. It's a great question.
Absolutely, and certainly folks in the audience, if you have your own policies, feel free to chime in with what age you've set. And then I have a question for Michelle. Michelle, what's the funding source for the bus program?
So it originally started with a combination of state funding and a local match from the town. But since then, the town has taken over 100% of the funding, so it's funded through their town budget, through town meeting.
Okay, and they passed a resolution to do that?
They go before the town meeting every year as part of the town's annual budget. They did in Acton, I think somebody was talking about this, they did actually pass a local sales tax. Unfortunately, I think the way it works in Massachusetts, you can't necessarily dedicate that to transit, but it was passed with an eye towards putting that money into the town budget to continue to be able to fund the transportation services. And it was well received, and so now they're funding them annually through their town budget.
That's great. And was that after like the first year or 6 months, or how long did it take them to kind of make that swap off of the federal?
I think they received funding for only the first year of the project. They received state funding for only the first year of the project on the dial-a-ride. After that, in the second year, they voted to pay 100% through town budget. And I think it was after the third year or maybe into the fourth year where they really started to think about how they were going to keep this in the budget long term, and they launched the campaign to do the local sales tax to help fund part of it.
Okay, great. So like a year where they were able to see the results of the program and they wanted to move forward.
Exactly, yeah. A good year of funding in partnership with the state, and they were able to see and feel really confident that this was going to be successful.
That's excellent. And just one final question, because I know that you were very safety conscious in your presentation. Did you provide extra training for the driver before launching the program?
Yeah, we did. The driver's been really an integral part of this program, and I think somebody else mentioned that as well, especially where kids are concerned. It's been so important to have the right driver on the program because, especially as we were saying, this is a location where they didn't have anything before, so it's their first exposure to it, and you want to build lifelong riders. So the driver's been a key part of making this whole program really successful.
Great, great. And definitely we have space for questions. If the audience has more, please feel free. Until then, though, I'll keep talking. Mary, I noticed that of the 3 speakers, you're the only one who's a direct partnership, who's not a transit agency themselves, sort of. And I was wondering how that got started, like who approached who to kind of kick that project off.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I mentioned the Whatcom Smart Trips program, and we encourage people to walk, bike, carpool, and ride the bus. And that program's been run out of the Council of Governments for almost 11 years now. and even prior to that, we've long been partners with our transit agency. So we have staff here who is already providing education and out in the community, and the transit agency doesn't have staff right now that does education, and so it was a natural partnership just to be able to provide that. And I guess you did ask, like, whose idea was it? But it was kind of a joint idea. You know, they had the idea of, oh, what if we, you know, tried to encourage 7th graders to, you know, ride the bus? But we don't have the expertise. And we said, well, we do. So we've been working very close with the transit agency to do this.
Okay, yeah, I think that that's just a hurdle that I hear a lot from the transit community is, you know, how do I get started with this partnership that makes sense once it exists, right? And Amber, I know you have a lot of, oh, go ahead, please.
Oh, I just was going to say I would encourage anybody on the line who isn't aware of who their local MPO is to find them and reach out to them and forge that partnership.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, Amber, I know you do a lot of partnerships too, and I wonder if you have any advice for the audience on kind of reaching out or suggesting an idea to another agency.
Sure. So we have really found a lot of success in kind of the cold call. So before we reach out, we try to figure out, okay, we know what that group's mission is. So like the school district's really easy. Like, you know, their focus is on youth, and then our programs wanted to focus on getting youth on transit. So we found how our program meets their mission, and then came together and had some meetings. We actually also changed the makeup of our transit advisory board, and we have a member from the school district. That was kind of how we started this partnership, is we reached out and said, you know, in order to run the programs and the services that we need, there are a few key players we really want to have a vested interest in how we move forward. And we identified the senior and disabled community. We identified the school district. We identified business owners. We identified, you know, a bicyclist and a sustainable modes of transportation advocate. So there's 7 members on our board. A member from the Student Support Lewis College have a seat on that board as well. And so having that connection also has really helped with the partnerships, because then our board member has kind of the inside track on helping us move these projects forward or solidify the partnerships.
Yes, certainly. And I will plug for a moment that a couple weeks ago we did do Engaging Community Stakeholders peer call that's up on the website on the peer calls tab that talks about kind of being active in your community and developing those relationships. Liz?
Amber, I have a couple questions for you. Well, first, I also wanted to note that Shanna from Sunset Empire Transportation in Astoria, Oregon, said that their policy is that children aged 10 and older can ride alone. So that's an example of an age policy set by the agency. This is maybe a negative question, but have you experienced any vandalism with the art at the bus stops? Or any issues like that? I mean, I would hope not, but.
No, actually we haven't, and that was something that we were worried about, and we decided to say, okay, you know, they're locked down with the 20-minute service. I think that, and they're on the main highway, so the main road through town. So there's constantly people that can see the stops. I think that helps.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we don't end up with vandalism, but lucky, knock on wood, we won't have any issues, and we haven't had any to date.
Yeah, that's great. Kind of a question about, you know, and I guess this is a little bit to Mary's, although Mary, I think, they had the grant. It does take time to have these programs with schools and the passes that you subsidize. And I know you have the members on your board from the school and students, so there's obviously a lot of support. and I think you get returns with riders through the years. But are there any other comments you'd have about funding or how much it costs you, and any financial aspect of your program?
So with our low-income passes, we actually that was a council action. So council directed us to create this program, and part of our negotiation with City Council was that the Community Services Fund would backfill our budget. So we track the number of passes that we sell or provide, and then the Community Services budget actually backfills the transit, whatever revenues we would have lost if that was a full price sale.
Great.
So that helps keep us whole. On the other side of the coin, in terms of the reduced rate student pass, going from $360 a year down to $30 a year, that's just a price we're willing to pay to make sure that we're trying to get that choice rider at a young age.
Right. And do you know how popular that is, those passes?
We do. So it's actually pretty popular, and what we see is that parents, during Noel night, we put a trolley out down on Main Street when all the shops have the sales, and we sell those coupons so they can do them as stocking stuffers. And actually this year we saw over a 300% increase in the sales of those passes as a stocking stuffer, and then we've seen them be redeemed at the window. So the students are using them, and I think it's helping families see that they don't have to buy their high school age student a car.
Yeah, that's quite a price difference, $30 to a car, or even the full price pass.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I think we'll leave it at that. I think if anyone else has any questions, we have the slides that have everyone's contact information. You can contact us. I hope that everyone on the line takes some of these suggestions and thinks of a way to incorporate it into your community. Thank you so much, Amber, Michelle, and Mary. I think these initiatives can have a real impact on youth and independence, and it helps the families, like we said, also the transit system, and just the community as a whole, people getting out and interacting with each other, or not, or just seeing each other out and about. And I know my son is 1.5 years almost, and he loves the bus, so hopefully he can grow up and continue using the bus as he gets older. So thank you, everyone, for attending today. The slides will be on our website usually within 1 week. And also just want to plug our the 3rd National RTAP Technical Assistance Conference, which will be October 29th to November 1st in Omaha, Nebraska this fall. Registration should be out in the next few weeks, so stay tuned, save the date, and we hope to see you there. And at our next webinar, we'll have one in April on emergency management, preparing for emergencies and response, so stay tuned for that as well. We hope you have a really great rest of your afternoon, and thank you again for coming. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.